Welcome to War Room Pandemic, New York City Special Report. Talk Radio 77, WABC, America's most powerful radio station. Also on the John Friedrich Radio Network, on Dish Channel 219, America's Voice.news, and on Newsmax TV. And throughout the world on Nexus.org. Jack Maxey, Jason Miller in the War Room today at Fort Defiance on Capitol Hill. Okay, there's so much going on. We try to focus on to separate out the signal from the noise. We have a live press conference going on with Mayor de Blasio right now. We have a live press conference about to start, a presser in the Brady Room with President Trump. He just tweeted out he'll be down momentarily on time. Someone's listening.
On time-ish.
On time-ish, but not an hour and a half late. They're going to have big announcements we're going to get into about how they're triaging now the nation. They're not. President Trump's not taking this thing off on Monday. Okay, we're rolling harder, and we'll get to all that. And everything we got to do. Remember, we look at the pandemic, we look at the economic crisis it triggered. Then on top of the financial crisis that was triggered by both of them, and the geopolitical issues with the Chinese Communist Party and our quote unquote allies of Saudi Arabia in the Persian Gulf, who are destroying our oil industry even as we speak. But we want to start off today. We want to talk about the cash, the bridge. You can't talk about shutting down New York City. You can't talk about quarantining people. You can't talk about what parts of the country are supposed to be shut down, opening up, closing down. You can't get to any of that until you figure out how do you bridge to the other side of that. How do you, the economic crisis, the one in the middle, how do you get cash money to the little guy? Remember, here we fight. We're populist. We fight for the little guy. We fight for the entrepreneur. And, you know, we've had a $4 bazooka sent into the capital markets to support the capital market. Stock market up 1,300 points a day. I think it's 20% over the last couple of days. That's a rebound. Is that a dead cat bounce or a bear market rally? We don't know yet. We've had a horrific run. But that cash was set in to stabilize the world's global capital markets, particularly the debt markets. And now we get down to the economic piece. And the key is, how are you going to get your cash? How are you going to be able to survive? This is not a stimulus package. This is a stability package, because we had a complete collapse of aggregate demand because of government proclamation. Never happened before in American history. There are months in which nothing happens, and then there are weeks in which decades happen. That's where we are right now. I want to turn now to, we had a very unique thing started today with the head of the Federal Reserve on the Today Show. That does not happen. That is the White House. That is the government saying we've got to get out to the people who maybe don't follow the news that closely, certainly don't follow the financial news. This stuff is all so complicated for them and so confusing. We have to go out, and he's interviewed by Savannah Guthrie. This is William Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, which is essentially the central bank of the United States of America.
Yep. And which clip do you want to go with? The one of him talking about the bridge?
Yeah, no, let's talk about the bridge first, and then we'll go back about the bullets and all that, because he lays out the program here. Okay.
Medium and large businesses are not able to borrow through their normal channels to some extent. And so we step in and replace that. That's a very healthy thing. That's a positive thing. We're providing relief. We're providing stability to get us. We're trying to create a bridge from our very strong economy to another place of economic strength. And that's what our lending really does.
They're taking notes over at the Fed. It's a bridge. This is the first time it's been articulated. It's a bridge to the other side. If you're in the tri-state area, and you're sheltering in place, or you think there's going to be a bigger quarantine, or you're trying to figure out what's going on, you have to get cash. Businesses have to make their payroll, and individuals have to get either the unemployment insurance, which we're going to go through in a second, or they have to figure out how they're going to get their money. If we don't have a bridge, and Powell and Mnuchin are the architects of that bridge. The fiscal part of it, the fiscal part is still, Nancy Pelosi is going to have people back, I guess, tomorrow to debate this and vote on it. It's supposedly already done. It's told the capital markets thing is done. But Powell controls the balance sheet of the people of the United States, the full faith and credit of the United States. Let's give them, we have unlimited ammo.
The other issue that comes up is whether or not you might run out of ammo, run out of bullets. And to that point, are you sorry that you didn't raise interest rates a little more when the economy was strong so you'd have more cushion now?
When it comes to this lending, we're not going to run out of ammunition. That doesn't happen. We set the interest rates in time at what we think is the right, giving the economy the right level of support. If we'd raised interest rates more, it would have been higher than we thought, and economic growth would have been a little bit slower, so it wouldn't have mattered in the
For the audience out there, this is to show you that and this is uncharted territory. He's essentially, I talked this on Maria Bartiromo. This is kind of combining the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve, the mechanism of the U.S. Treasury, to actually be able to go into lend, not just to investment grade credits, not just all the Boeings and the airlines, which we'll talk about that later, but this is actually can lend to the little guy. They got a whole system of provisions of how you can get direct loans from banks. So you don't have to go through small business and everything like that. And we'll turn it over to you in a second. And also how you personally get cash. The mechanism of how you actually do it in the short term to make sure that you're bridging that gap, that we don't have any, because we have no aggregate demand, that you actually do it, is complicated. And that's what we're here to explain to you today. We'll turn it over to Jason. You've actually talked to Treasury today, correct?
Yeah. So talked with someone who's an insider who has a really good sense of how this is being done. And I want to go and kind of break this down for you. And by the way, the Washington Post now has up on their website a calculator so you can figure out where you are, whether you're going to get the $1,200 per adult or $500 per child, or where exactly you fit into this mix. WashingtonPost.com, they have a pretty good calculator. So here's where we are. You have about 150 million checks that are going to go out. Of those, we have, when I say we, meaning the Treasury, the U.S. government, about 70 million that you have on file who have electronic returns who are coming back.
That's high, about half?
Yeah, a little under, yes.
A little under here, but I'm surprised. That's impressive.
So it's moved quite a bit. So this is people are really moving to the digital age when you're talking about people who file quarterly. You have people who are in this. I mean, I shouldn't say most because it's just under 50%. But as far as the active people, and again, it's someone either you can file if you've already filed your 2019 taxes, showing that you paid some sort of taxes. Otherwise, it goes off of your 2018 if you've not filed your 2019. But the bottom line is that if you were working and you can show that you were working, then you'll have one of these checks coming.
In other words, if you have a tax ID number, you'll be able to get it, right?
If you've been paying taxes, yes. If you've earned enough money to pay taxes, then you will get this back. And people say, well, what about someone who has no money? What about someone who has been on, say, welfare, for example, or on
assistance? Yep.
Assistance. Then you've been continuing to get that. You haven't lost what you've been on because you've been on public assistance. So of this 70 million, that when I say that we, meaning the government or the Treasury, has your info, they're going to get their direct transfers. Now, these will happen.
And they will get that within what time frame?
So the first round is going to come in about 3 weeks. Those will probably split up over 2 weeks, possibly into a third week, but probably 2 weeks, and I'll tell you why. They can physically generate about 30 million of these per week. Which is, by the way, a pretty darn big number to be able to generate 30 million of these transfers to people. So let's just say roughly spread out over 2 weeks. So if you're trying to figure out, hey, I've been filing taxes, I know I'm going to get one of these checks, figure 4 weeks from now should be safe for when you're going to get it. They do have systems in place going back to how they did the Bush rebate check, also going back to when they did the Obama check for doing the snail mail version. They are currently working on – they have a couple other ideas that they're trying to get creative on how to speed that up because those can take between 3 weeks and 3 months for how long those can go and process. They're trying to speed that up. They're looking at some other things such as portals online where you can go through and essentially sign yourself up electronically.
So they'll try to expedite it to the degree they can.
They're trying to expedite it to the degree they can.
Yep.
Here's the big thing they're really going through. They have a special premium to make sure that there's no fraud with any of this. And so they're going hardcore.
I hope they don't slow down the process. I don't want any leakage, right? We hope there's not any leakage, but there will be. But I hope that doesn't slow down the process too much. We want zero leakage. We want no fraud. But
they're also, but I want to make sure that our friends out there who hate fraud and abuse, they're very diligent to make sure that doesn't happen. So again,
what about the other half?
Well, so that's the
electronic guys.
So the electronic guys, you're gonna get it either in the for 4 weeks. More than likely.
What happens if you got to cut a check and send it to the U.S. Post Office?
Then those are the folks that they're working on it, but that could be upwards of. I mean, you could be looking at somewhere, roughly in that month and a half range. You could be looking at.
Last time I looked at a month and a half, it was 6 weeks. This is why we got to refine this more. This is.
Well, it's like-
I understand what they're trying to do. That's just not going to work.
But also here's the thing. I mean, look, if you file electronically, you can get it right away. They're trying to speed up the process.
got that.
They're going to have some new things you can do.
I would posit that probably the people that need this more are probably the people that don't have electronic transfer. I'm just throwing that out there.
I disagree. If you're talking about, say, like the small business folks, a lot of them are filing electronically now. I don't have the exact breakdown.
Listen, the
on
reason we're into we go from the sublime to the ridiculous here, and the reason is you got to know the details. Part of this, there's a big controversy about how much is going to the little guy and how this is going to be executed. The White House, these guys are trying their hardest. We're hopefully going to give them comments and observations and refinements and all this as they perfect the system. Okay. War Room Pandemic, the New York City special report for the tri-state area in New York City. We're return President Trump's press conference, Mayor de Blasio's press conference, Cuomo's press conference, plus all the actions taken in a whole new county-by-county triage for the United States of America. Back in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Donald J. Trump, who is from New York, the 45th President of the United States, says nothing is inevitable. That means human action and human agency will get us through this. We're seeing every day Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, President Trump wrestling with this unique really event in American history, in the history of this great city, in this great area. Talk Radio, 77 WABC, War Room Pandemic, New York City special report. There's some confusion. By the way, for the last segment, all the details on how you get your money or try to get your money or when it's going to come, Jack's going to put it up with Kyle Obert on the website, warroom.pandemic.org. You can go there and see everything. We're up 24 hours a day. Also, hashtag War Room Pandemic. We want you part of the show, your voice, your observations, particularly any news from the tri-state area or from New York City that you have in any region, area, borough, neighborhood, street. But now we got to pivot. So much going on. We need to pivot. Kind of the first time, I think, with Governor Cuomo, a little bit of mixed messaging today. I still quite don't understand what he's talking about. Can you please explain to me, Jason Miller, the press conference? And one advice I would give the governor, less is more. Less is these have been power briefings to date, a little all over the map today.
Yeah, they've been power briefings, and for those listeners who have thought we've been too nice to Governor Cuomo, we do get a number of that feedback. We do. Steve, Jason, Jack, why are you guys so?
You right wingers, what are you doing? He's a fascist.
Yeah, why are you guys being a Cuomo fanboy? So we're going to beat up on him a little bit. So
we're all fascists now. Come on, let's get real.
But Governor Cuomo has been pretty darn good as far as being an effective communicator of late. Today, he kind of goes and mixes, says he's not sure if he's really done it right. Let me play this clip and we'll dive into it.
What we did was we closed everything down. That was our public health strategy. Just close everything. All businesses, all workers, young people, old people, short people, tall people, every school, close everything. If you rethought that or had time to analyze that public health strategy, I don't know that you would say quarantine everyone. I don't even know that that was the best public health policy. Young people then quarantined with older people was probably not the best public health strategy.
All right, so I got to take issue with this right away because, first of all, the young people and the old people thing. Okay, let's say that you didn't quarantine everyone. You're not going to split up young people and old people living in the same household and say, okay, well, we're just going to, if you're over the age of 65, you're going to go, you're all piling into the Four Seasons Hotel and you get to stay there until it's been 14 days. You start moving people around, and if you have those who are infected. Also, too, this is just snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Why would you go and start saying you could have done things better when you're being praised so broadly that people want to dump Joe Biden to put you on the ticket?
And not just for the politics. It seems like the math, if you look at it, it seems like what he's done is correct. Now to send this, the Daily Mail, this is not us, the Daily Mail makes it the lead story. And the lead story in the Daily Mail is very confusing about how it's written. Very mixed messages here, right? And you're still sitting there thinking, hey, and I want to talk about Mayor de Blasio, when this peak is, what's coming. But I would actually advocate, I think you need to go even further. I think you need to go harder on shutting this down in the social distancing, separation, quarantine. We're talking. I got calls today from people in Puerto Rico. Senior level people that the governor of Puerto Rico, who's the head of the Supreme Court, she replaced the governor that they bounced. She put out on the 18th, she put out a request for the FAA to stop the flights coming from New York. Right? Obviously, there's many folks from Puerto Rico here in New York City in the tri-state area, but they said, hey, and you see in Palm Beach and West Palm Beach, they're saying the same thing at the airport. Debbie Burks gets up yesterday and says, "Hey, if you're coming from the New York City area, you got to self quarantine for 2 days." So we want to make sure, and I keep arguing, New York City to me is going to replicate Wuhan unless you really get down on top of this thing and lock it down. And I think today with Governor Cuomo, it's a little mixed messaging about the success to date, or he would rethink this. I also don't think it's good, given everybody's kind of nervous and on pins and needles, that the captain of the ship doesn't say right there, hey, maybe my strategy's wrong, particularly something so fundamental as this.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he just lead New Rochelle through this firestorm, and aren't they starting to improve now?
Well, let's talk about this. I think that part of the reason that Governor Cuomo is being more pragmatic is because the state of New York has put out so many tests. They're testing more than anywhere else in the country.
What part of that's talk about these antibodies? What talk about the underlying construct of what he's trying to get across?
Well, the first test is the regular coronavirus. Do you have the active virus? And now Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, great American teaching hospital,
fabulous,
working on a test so that we can test people's antibodies. And now this would be an at-home test. I mean, you could do this like a pregnancy test. It takes 15 minutes to get the results. And I think what Governor Cuomo is starting to think about, and we're seeing this also in England, is the idea is if you've already had the disease and you have antibodies to it and you're not shedding the virus, then maybe you should go back to work, or maybe you should go back to your normal life. And when you look at what these estimations are for 50% infection rate for New York, maybe 10%, 15% have already been infected.
Okay, let's go down to the head of public health and the Mayor de Blasio.
Yeah, so the first thing, so Mayor de Blasio was on with Anderson Cooper 360 last night in the 8 p.m. hour. Mayor de Blasio has a little bit of a different time frame and timetable as far as when things are going to get bad and when they're going to get better. Let's go to the clip.
And we're going to need to go through not just weeks. I've told New Yorkers honestly, I think April will be worse than March, and I fear that May actually will be worse than April. I don't think this is just a few weeks. I don't think we're going to be okay by Easter. I think it's going to go substantially past that just by the numbers we're seeing alone.
This is brand new. I have not seen this anywhere. So Mayor de Blasio last night with AC 360.
Nobody's played it up like we played this thing up the other day and made it a
This
big
is
story.
shift, and it goes directly against what Governor Cuomo is saying for the peak coming in 14 to 21 days.
The president said Easter. I think that was kind of a random number of how to check it out. Cuomo's never said Easter, but he said he's pushed back. He's 21st of April, thereabouts in later April. Nobody's ever said May. This is also, I think, Mayor de Blasio, if I can make a constructive criticism or observation, before you go on these shows, there ought to be some behind the scenes working together to kind of put there's one common set of math, and if you disagree with it, fight it out behind the scenes. Okay, we're going to take another short commercial break here, come back to War Room Pandemic, but we want everybody in the show, the way you participate, easiest, simplest way, contact us on hashtag War Room Pandemic. This is the New York City Special Report, Talk Radio 77 WABC. We're going to return Maxie, Miller, Bannon in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
That's a BBC reporter reporting what President Xi said. This virus is a demon, and we cannot allow this demon to hide. But as more information comes out, the Chinese Communist Party looks like they're culpable in not releasing the full details of what they knew about this virus, and this has allowed this virus to metastasize, go throughout the world, and wreak havoc, I think now in 180 nations. Death, destruction of value, destruction of the economies, completely unacceptable. We're going to get into all that. It's the Chinese Communist Party, not the people of China, and particularly people in the New York City area of Chinese descent, Chinese Americans. People are here from China. You're among the most noble, bravest, hardworking, decent folks on the face of the earth, and your oppressors in the Chinese Communist Party visited this upon you in Wuhan, in Hubei province, and now it's exploded throughout the world. I'm not saying in conjunction with the World Health Organization, but there's so many questions that have to get down. All the facts are going to come out. All the facts in this are going to come out. And we're going to lead the charge on that because it's unacceptable, the Chinese Communist Party, and they will be held accountable. Another New Yorker, Woody Johnson, the ambassador to the Court of St. James, wrote in the Times of London today, one of the most prestigious papers in the world, the paper of record of the United Kingdom. He got in the grill of the Chinese Communist Party and said, your suppression of information at the beginning of this virus when you knew what was going on has led to this disastrous outbreak. We're going to get more to that later. 77 WABC Talk Radio, War and Pandemic, New York City Special Report. Jack?
One thing I'd like to say about Woody Johnson's article, too, it tells you a little bit about the NFL compared to the NBA. Remember? Those guys were afraid to criticize China, and now you have an NFL owner just punching them right in the jaw.
Owner of the Jets went really full. I mean, he went off. And I tell you, this is only the top of the first inning when it gets to this thing. Don't want to mix sports metaphors, but this confrontation with the Chinese Communist Party is coming. They're at full-scale information war and they're at full-scale economic war with all the industrial democracies, right, of the world, and the United States being the lead of that. We're going to get to that. I want to finish, though, go back to New York City and go back to Mayor de Blasio. This confusion about the math, I think, has to stop. And what I would say to the folks is work it out behind the scenes, right? And even have a range if you have to have a range. But we should not have the governor saying one thing and the mayor saying another. We should have some sort of consensus. Remember, the way this goes is triage. The federal government supplies the logistical support, the cash, the resources. The next level down is at the governor's level. They manage the process. And then at the next level is, in this case, the mayor or county supervisors. That's the deck plates. They execute, right? They have the execution authority and they have the execution responsibility. But you have to have some agreement between the management level, particularly between the management level and the executive and the execution level of this is not a small thing. When are we going to peak, right? What actions are we going to take in that peaking? Let's talk about de Blasio and the health minister.
Yeah, so the numbers are a little bit all over the map. So de Blasio, and we led off yesterday's show talking about how in his mayoral address that he said half or more than half of New Yorkers could get coronavirus. He repeated the claim again or the projection, depending how you're looking on Anderson Cooper last night. Let's go play the brief clip.
We are concerned about how many people are contracting the disease. I mean, I've been honest with New Yorkers. Probably before this is over, half of all New Yorkers, if not more, will contract this disease. Thank God 80% of them will have a very mild experience. You know, even a lot of the folks we're talking about, the healthcare workers, if they're younger, if they're healthy.
So he continues on there. But today, and I believe I have this right, Dr. Oxiris Barbeau, who is the city health commissioner. My sincere apologies to the doctor if I mangled her name. She said by the time September rolls around, likely 50% will have contracted it, but it could also be much higher. So that's what both the mayor and his health commissioner
These are not
saying.
off. Dr. Gabriel Leung at Hong Kong University, who really went over and had to school the World Health Organization. When the World Health Organization dropped the ball at the beginning of this, Gabriel Leung, the virus killer from Hong Kong, one of the most respected guys in the world.
Guy defeated SARS-1.
To the degree he was defeated SARS-1 as part of that team. He goes over gives a big interview to The Guardian, then goes I think to Geneva and gets the minds right of the WHO that, hey, this is a pandemic, okay? The WHO, to call this thing a pandemic, 2 weeks ago, on the same day that CNN called it a pandemic, we called it a pandemic back in January. You know why? Because it was a pandemic and people should have been focused on that. So I don't want to hear CNN criticizing the President of the United States and I'm not here to defend Trump, but who on the 29th, 30th, and 31st makes the decision to shut down all air traffic from China and quarantine everybody that's coming in, of which Biden's head blows up and CNN's head blows up. Okay, this you got to. If you're going to get the facts, you got to get the facts down. Now, I want to go. Here's my point: the 50 to 60 to even 80% is not off of some projections we've heard from people about everybody in the world. But I think in this context, to throw it out there, one of the things you don't want to panic people. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. We don't want people to have ill-informed complacency. But I think when you're throwing those kind of numbers out, people can get a little rattled about how, because they don't hear the 20% are only going to get sick, and the 4% are going to have to be hospitalized, or 6% hospitalized, and 3% into ICU, and 1% will die.
Right, but I want to also make sure that because again, the messages are overlapping. So you have Governor Cuomo, who on Saturday said New Yorkers statewide between 40 and 80%. I'm sorry, again, Governor Cuomo, I've praised you in a number of places. A 40% range, kind of big. That's kind of a big range. I mean, why don't you just say it's going to be somewhere between 0 and 100% of people are going to get it? Like, okay, that's almost as accurate as you are now. Then you have Mayor de Blasio going through and say half or more than half. But then of that, only 80% or 80% it'll be mild or no real symptoms. Then his public health commissioner saying, well, it could even be higher as we go into the fall. So you have these moving numbers all across the board. Jack, I'd like to get your thought what other experts are saying or where it might be, because you're seeing these different numbers and messages. And if you're a New Yorker, the only thing you think of, well, man, this ain't looking good for me.
Well, here's a historical precedent. The H1N1 virus that came to America out of Mexico that was described as a swine flu incorrectly. It was avian flu. That antibody exists in about 50% of the human population of the United States. And that epidemic, we remember, was supposed to kill hundreds of thousands and be a nightmare for the country. And we ran out of N95 masks and all the other stuff. And we lost several thousand, but it didn't turn out to be as fatal as this. But in terms of infection rate, I mean, there's a historical precedent from just 10 years ago.
Let's go to we got good news here. Let's get to the good news of in the tri-state area. We do have some good news about resources, logistics, other things are happening that are positive.
Well, here's a really positive thing. We talked about those hospital groups from the U.S. Army who are coming to New York, and they are on their way. They're packing up right now. The 531st Hospital out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
101st Airborne.
101st Airborne. Ready to go.
You got some real professionals in that group.
200-person medical team with a full slate of everything. And then you're also going to get the 9th Hospital out of Fort Hood, Texas. Texas coming to New York's aid. This is what America's about.
Also, I guess we just got a breaking news right here. President Trump announces the USNS Comfort from the United States Navy is headed to New York City on Saturday rather than 3 weeks from now because of maintenance. It was expedited. They've been working around the clock down in Norfolk, Virginia. Your Army is there for you, the 101st. I think 3 IDs out of Fort Hood. These are super professionals heading there. And now you've got the USNS. You've got the Navy's pitching in. Navy's coming up with a big hospital ship.
Yeah, and something to think about with these guys coming up. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jason. Something to think about it is these personnel from the Comfort are leaving the Norfolk Navy Hospital. So that hospital is going to be understaffed, and they understand what they're doing. They're all in for America. And the same thing is true for Fort Campbell and Fort Hood in Texas. They've actually published regulations saying how they're going to be able to keep all those troops healthy with severely understaffed hospitals. But, look, America's coming to the aid of New York, and you guys are going to get through this. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, big time. No, look, we know we're going to get through it. Look, when you have to – that's what I keep saying about quarantine. When you have to go through hell, get through it as fast as possible, okay? That's the whole watchword here is bang through it, okay? And that's why you're going to have resources. Remember, it's very important for the Army and for the Navy not to have, infection, stuff like that. That's what's so great that they're coming up here to support this. The whole country's going to come together to help
I
this.
must say I prefer when you quote Churchill, right? He said, if you find yourself in hell, walking through hell, by all means, just keep walking. Rather than Lenin, right?
We also have Governor Cuomo today saying that they're going to have these pop-up hospitals, these overflow hospitals that are each capable of holding 1,000 patients, so 1,000 beds in each of the city's boroughs. Let's go to a clip of him saying that from his press conference today.
We're also scouting new sites now all across primarily the downstate area of this state for possible sites. Our goal is to have a 1,000 plus overflow facility in each of the boroughs downstate in the counties.
So again, we're going to have the Comfort that's going to be up there. We're going to have, just in the Javits Center, we'll have the 4 250-bed FEMA setups. We're going to have the multiple is, I believe Jack said, was it 625 Army medics and folks are being sent up to New York to help out. Each of these.
And they'll set up field hospitals too.
Right,
Yes.
and it looks like he has set up actually, in addition to the boroughs, there are a couple of the surrounding counties, so a total of 10 of these 1,000-bed overflow facilities. So these are a lot of facilities being set up, plus we even talked about on the SUNY Stony Brook and some other places.
This is why we got to get to de Blasio's people, and we got to help. We have to understand the numbers and maybe get our team that's been working on this independently to work it also. But because he said another thing about what just came on his press conference about the ventilators. Correct me if I'm wrong. He now has 15,000 that have been sent in, or whatever. He has a 15,000 ventilator stock.
He said that we need 60,000 beds and we need 15,000 ventilators. And this is a lot of ventilators. I mean, New York State had 1,200, I guess.
60,000 beds in ventilators. Yes. Okay. Where are we right now on the ventilator ass? Also in the ventilators, remember, you need the respiratory technicians. Dr. Maria Ryan told us it's not just a ventilator and a respirator. You also need, and I got to tell you, the respiratory therapist, that is a highly technical job. You just don't wander off the street. She said even the doctors and nurses are not trained in this equipment.
Well, and it's interesting because we mentioned it the other day, the 2015 ventilator study done by the state of New York, and in their discussion about why they don't, stockpile more of them, is they say, we don't have the technicians.
Right.
So even if we did stockpile them, we can't operate them.
This number sounds so. When somebody told me 60,000 in the break, it's man. If that's the case, maybe the May number we got to really understand because it's probably 5x what everybody else thinks. Go ahead,
Steve. So President Trump from the podium just said that next week they'll be talking to reporters about dates for moving forward with people returning to regular life. I think this is worth putting out there so people get some blue sky and a sense of where things are going. That 15 days to stop the spread ends on, I believe that ends on Monday. So then Tuesday would be the first section of what comes next. I think what they'll probably do is come back with a 2-week continuation of that national shutdown, or of the another 15 days or 2 weeks to stop the spread, essentially taking out to this overall 30 days. And then after that, following after Easter, my guess is that they probably go with a piecemeal system, whether it's on a state by state or a county by county.
Well, let's talk about it. They've put out some guidance. Fox wrote it up. They've put out a letter from the president. Let's talk about that for a second because it says it's going to go county. They're going to triage it by county, right?
They hope to get to that point, yes, of 3 different tiers. And keep in mind, there are 3,007 counties across the country. Thank you, Vish Burra, here on our production team, for knowing that off the top of his head. But this, look, there's some danger with this being a literally county by county. Granted, there are only the 3 categories, but the way that things are so interconnected, take a look at the tri-state area.
That's our
point.
point.
I mean, look at.
Let's go to Governor. In fact, talking about that, let's go to Governor Murphy. Phil Murphy's a good man. Governor of New Jersey. We have his hit from yesterday.
Actually, this is from earlier today. He's talking about how they lost 19 folks yesterday in New Jersey.
And we have the very sad duty to report that another 19 New Jerseyans have now lost their lives and have died from COVID-19 related complications. And this brings our total number of lost lives to 81 precious human beings. Every single one of them was an invaluable member, a precious member of our New Jersey family, and
this is why when the White House puts this out, we're going to have to disaggregate. How do you come to the logic that is by county, right? Because the way it spreads is not by – it doesn't have geographic boundaries like cities. It doesn't have geographic boundaries like states. It doesn't have geographic boundaries like counties.
Well, one of the reasons you do that, and you've referenced it as well, the way this thing is supposed to operate, you have the federal government at the top, you have the state government next, and then you have county governments. This is all part of a long-term pandemic plan for the United States. Now, the fact that most counties, states, and cities didn't do anything to prepare is another story, but the structure is there.
Hashtag War Room Pandemic. We're going to come back. President Trump still giving his afternoon briefing. This is War Room Pandemic, New York City Special Report, Talk Radio 77, WABC. It's Jack Maxey. It's Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon. We have the website. You can go up every day, 24/7. warroom.pandemic.org. And the way you participate in the show, hashtag #WarRoomPandemic. We're going to return in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Talk Radio 77 WABC in New York City. This is the War Room Pandemic, New York City special report every day at 5 o'clock from 5 to 6. So we try to talk about the pandemic, the economic crisis, the financial crisis, the geopolitics of it all, give you the perspective of New York City, the tri-state area, Washington, D.C., all of it. Breaking news as we go. President Trump is giving a press conference. Mayor de Blasio just stopped. I want to talk about Texas. What happened? What did Texas just do?
Texas just joined Florida as far as states saying that there's a 14-day self-quarantine for anyone coming from the tri-state area. They've also added New Orleans, which obviously Louisiana is right next door to East Texas there. So that another state joining the self-quarantine for anyone from New York.
So if you leave in the tri-state area and if you fly down, when you get to the location, you got to do a 14-day. So if you're going on business, this one again. If you're going on business or if you're going on to see people or vacation, I don't see the utility of this.
Right. I mean, we've talked a little bit yesterday in a couple of the previous shows about how just overall the economy is going to change, industries are going to change, business travel as we know it is going to change.
At least for right now.
At least for right now. I mean, no one's going on any business travel anytime soon.
Well, one of our listeners brought this up the other day. He lives out in Wisconsin. He's a proud American. He's ready to do whatever it takes. But he had a very valid question. Wisconsin, with not that many cases outside of Milwaukee, why is it that you're still allowing flights every day from New York into Milwaukee? Now, I talked to my cousin this morning, and she's down in West Palm Beach, Florida. They have flights coming in from New York nonstop, and there's nobody greeting them there to check them for fevers, and there's nobody even informing them that they need a 14-day.
This gets back to my point about why we've got to lock the whole thing down, because you've got to go through some period of time, make sure there's not host receptors for the virus, and we just get through it. And that may take 2 weeks, it may take 4 weeks, but there's a set duration of what it will take. China and these other places tell us that. And the more you lock it down hard, then you take that burden off of people, right? You do it, but you have to have the financial bridge. We're going to find in the next couple of days. I honestly, from what I'm hearing right now, the mechanics of it, I'm not sure it works, and I think they've done a great job. Also, they got this controversy. Lindsey Graham and a couple of senators got this controversy about the unemployment insurance, because really, it seems to me the most people, particularly if you have big layoffs, you're going to be covered on the unemployment insurance, and I think that's actually where most of the cash may actually end up going.
Although I disagree with you a bit on that one, because again, businesses are going to have their companies united with their workforce ready to go when they come out of this, as they start ramping up. And the incentive is there. So if you're a small business, 500 employees or less, you can basically keep payroll going for 2 months. People are going to at least roll the dice and say, if I can keep my company together for 2 months, have people make payroll, then let's go and do it. Now, here's the thing. If we're not, this is why it's a bridge. It's why we have to smash the curve right now, because we get 2 months from now and this comes up and we haven't smashed it and businesses aren't coming back, then it's going to be an issue.
No, I think that's what we have to smash the curve. I don't think it's flattening the curve. I think it's smash the curve. And here's what we got to focus on now. We got to focus on the Saudis in this situation with our oil industry. That's killing our oil industry, particularly the fracking business in Pennsylvania and Texas. And we have to address this. This is the CCP virus. This is not a Chinese virus. It's not a Wuhan virus. This is the CCP. The Chinese knew about this, lied to everybody. Jack Maxey's the one that brought up the fact that they tweeted out on the 14th on their Twitter feed that they had been in Beijing, they had met, they had information. There was in Beijing, their best knowledge was there was no human-to-human transmission. Okay,
yeah, this is from the World Health Organization. And then today, and I don't know if you listened to our earlier thing, Steve and I were shocked at this. The Taiwan news service came out and said that the Taiwanese State Department went to the World Health Organization and told them that there was human-to-human transmission on December 31st.
Jack Maxey picked it up on the 27th of December. The Taiwanese were already told WHO on the 29th. We're going to get into all those details. They're not going to be able to hide from this, okay?
No.
The destruction of people's lives. First off, the destruction of the citizens of Wuhan, the decent, hardworking Chinese people in Hubei province, and what they did there and then throughout the world. They're going to have to be held accountable. Okay, go to #War on Pandemic. We will see you tomorrow. War on Pandemic, New York City special report at 5 p.m.